Right, turn your mic on.
Ah, thank you. Hey, well, wait a minute. That's all right. Yeah, I kind of got lost there. All righty, well, why don't we call this meeting to order?
All right, we'll start with the roll call. Kathy Cavalier, here. Tiffany DeMayo here. Chris Wilson,
Here.
Bob Baker.
Bill Baker, yes.
Bill, I'm so sorry.
That's close
My
enough.
bad. Donna McCall here. And Frank Falcone.
Here.
Perfect.
Do we have anybody who's not here?
We do not have anyone that is not here.
Okay, so our previous people have officially rolled off.
Mhm.
All right, why don't we have a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? Who wants to lead the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence.
All righty.
I'm gonna move that we approve the agenda for this evening. I get a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I don't see that we have anybody here for public comment. So we will skip past number 5. And I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the minutes from January 14th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Kathy, it looks like 7.1 is to you to cover discussing the historical
Oh,
society.
yes, that's actually a combination. That's 7.1 and 7.2.
We're gonna do 7.1 and 7.2 together?
Yes, because that's, yeah, they were together. Basically, I just wanted to review that there's, this is the first annual conference of historic societies, HARBs, and historic commissions. It was held by the county at the Willows, and it will be an annual event where you can meet people from all the different historic societies throughout the county and their commissions and any of their architectural review. I didn't really see any. I'm not sure there are any yet of those. Some in lieu of commissions have a architectural review board. Anyway, so it's very enlightening in that it gives you all these different types of ordinances that are out there and the townships that have already acquired the certified local government. There were several that were there. So anyway, it was a networking type of thing, and next year going forward, I'll make sure that this was the first time, so invites didn't go to everybody but Historic Society. I thought it was only that. So they were discussing the biggest item they have is the America 250. And within the townships, they wanted to organize cooperative kind of ventures to have celebrations in each municipality. And then also within the municipality, coordinate any events that people are having. That's 2026. And that would be with all our township committees or organizations that are running anything. So basically to connect with everyone in the township that wants to participate in that. And also the county is organizing it. And I think their goal is to have something like I think they already have Visit Delco kind of a thing where you have events and then they advertise everything that's going on in a county on those days.
Is that a website?
I think it is.
Mhm.
It is. And because I belong to the one that's the Arts of Delco, and basically they meet all the time and they coordinate all art or performing arts events that are going on, and then they publicize them. So that's what the county would be doing as well. So it's just in the beginning, but you need a lot of time to plan these kind of things. So it was a really well-attended event, and it'll be moved to different locations each year. So that was at the Willows, that was Radnor, and Radnor presented Radnor's Historic Society. And that was, I just wanted to give you an update on that, if anybody's.
Okay. Is that targeted specifically at township historical groups, or is it township historical groups as well as non-governmental historical groups? Like the
It was historic societies mostly, and then historic commissions,
Okay,
and then Delaware County Historic Society actually, I think, organized it.
Okay.
And wanted to introduce their new location in media. And now that they're there, they're, I think, broadening their reach and going to have events at their building on State Street at Dining Under the Stars, the nights that they have that, so that they can capture a bigger audience and get people more interested in that. So, and I was very pleasantly surprised that a lot of the people were younger than I thought. So when I went there, I wasn't sure, but it was quite varied, and there were a lot of young people that were there and belonging to these organizations, which was kind of nice to see.
is there anything we as a group need to do on this in the short run, or is it kind of?
I'll connect you now. I think connecting with the Haverford Historic Commission is probably one way that they were very, they have some issues that we don't have, and they pretty much want to touch base
The
with
historical
us.
society or the historical
The
commission?
commission.
So Stacy and.
I don't know, do you know? Yes. I met the two ladies that were, that I don't know what position, but they've been on it probably over a year or two.
Okay.
How would that work? I mean, for them to connect with members of our commission,
Mhm.
would it be like an unofficial conversation?
I would think. Yes, I mean, mine was. Three people could have gone. I mean, I'm not sure how that works, and in a public venue like that, it's a conference.
Yeah, I mean, when you're at a conference, you're there to learn, right? I
Mhm.
mean, so you're not making any decisions on
Right.
behalf of the organization. So if you all went to a conference, let's say, and you were there to learn things and, have maybe conversations with others who were there.
Mhm.
What you don't want to do is then get together as a group of 4 people, because there's 6 of you, 4 of you is a quorum. You wouldn't want to be together as 4 people and then discuss what you're going to come back and do in the township. Okay, that would need to be discussed here
Mhm.
in this
Right.
location. But going to learn, all 6 of you could go and learn, and that's not a problem. We don't, there's nothing prohibiting that. We would consider that an informational meeting.
Mhm.
We probably would just want to announce that that's what you're doing, that all of you are going, and that, that's what's happening. Now, the other option is to bring, like, if somebody from that group wanted to come in and do a presentation here for you, that's also another option.
Mhm.
But going to a conference is,
Right.
is not a problem. Like, all of the board of supervisors could go to the PSATS conference that we have,
Yeah.
and they just couldn't discuss township business while they were there, so that would be the key.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's pretty much what they wanted to know. And to be honest, I think they wanted to get more information on how ours works. You should feel good, and township should feel good, because in comparison to many of the organizations and within these other municipalities, ours is functioning well, and
Yeah.
you should be very proud. They were saying, oh, we should be coming to you. And I said, well, in terms of the things that we can accomplish and the relationship that we have with the township.
Yeah,
So I think that that's not, and the ordinances, there aren't that many in the town, in the county. So, and they're totally, a lot of them are different. They have the historic districts.
yeah, it's really hard. We have one of those really like. It's easy if you have a downtown that's.
Yeah.
200 years old and everything is, that vintage and
Mhm.
you go in and you say, we're going to create this historic district and say that. The problem here that we have in Newtown is that in a lot of cases, you have one house on one street, another house on another street, or if you do have two on the same road, they're half a mile or 2 miles apart and there's 10 houses in between
Mhm.
that wouldn't qualify for historic and we wouldn't want them to be on historic, and so
Yeah.
it's like, how do you do that? And so for us, it's really spotted
Mhm.
and it makes it harder, because if you had a historic district, and then when you did, you could come up with a lot of requirements for the district that would make sense.
Mhm.
It's just really hard to do that here because you got a house here and a house there and a property here and a property there. And occasionally we have a couple that are together, but most of them are spread out all over.
Yeah.
But which is part of our history, right? I mean,
Right, yeah.
that's what happens when you start out as farms and,
Yes.
and, you don't have a real downtown. I mean, one of the challenges we've had, right? You're trying to create a feel of a downtown and a town center. And we had to go with something that was very new looking to be able to do that because we didn't have anything that really, we just didn't have that. And so, we have to work.
Our roads intersect.
Yeah,
I mean, the most likely would have been Goshen and 252, but they had these highways
yeah,
and then they're interspersed, but that's, I think, where the most of a grouping of historic homes is,
Yeah.
right along that corridor in there.
yeah,
But still, it couldn't be. in the
Crossroads.
district.
We are a
We're at the
crossroads.
crossroads.
yes, exactly.
All righty.
So is there any specific from the Historical Society March 4th meeting that we want to capture? Or was it just all
I
the?
don't know. I think Bill,
Historic
we
Commission.
were talking, I'm not quite sure if that was, because that was all specific to.
We talk things like budgets and.
Yeah,
It was
and
more
the
internal to
2025, the
yeah.
2026 event encompassed everyone, so I think that was what they wanted us to go back and do. So yeah, they actually were one and the same here.
Okay.
Okay, we want to move on to new business. All right, the first item in new business is discussion and possible approval of an informational letter. We want to push that down and discuss it
So-
with the homeowner's
Yeah.
letter.
Yeah, let's do that.
So we'll table that one until we get to old business. Then at 8.2, we wanted to have a discussion of how class 2 properties, once we've approved them through the commissioners, are actually recorded in
Where is that at?
what?
And where would they be located?
Well, I think what I got from that question was once they're recorded, does that actually get pushed onto something that, like when something comes through planning, that they actually see in front of them on the computer or on paper or?
Well, so on our website, we load them as they become a class 2 web, we list, I shouldn't load them, we list them on the website. In addition to that, when the township map gets updated, and we don't do it every time because it looks like we could be starting to send more of these through. And so, as we load these, as the board approves them and we make changes to the zoning map, because it's an overlay, right? We have to go back and put it on the overlay. The challenge is, if you look at the township zoning map, there are a couple of the properties that are rather small. They're not necessarily a large property. So if you put some kind of overlay, which is usually like a dotted line or a different shading or something like that, it on our map, it just doesn't show up easy. That's why we went to the list. But we are doing that for each property as they get approved. And it's,
So if one
list.
of those properties comes in for a building permit, is it flagged in the system or?
yeah, so in addition to that, Heather, who works in our office there, and I think she's the one that does your agenda because of that. She actually takes and flags that property in our system. We have a system that lists all our properties. And it's, one of the flags is that it's a class 2 resource. And so, or a class 1 resource. And so when Andy goes to review that, she knows that, and she's made a note of it on the property as it's reviewed.
Is there anywhere on the township site where people can reference that?
I think there is. I think if you look,
List.
let me see if I can find it real quick.
You mean a list?
Yeah.
Yeah, not the map, the list, yeah. for the
Mhm.
properties.
That's the way to get some water.
Hmm?
To get some water. To get some water.
Yeah.
No.
Historic sites in Newtown.
That's all right.
And it may be that
No,
she
that's
hasn't,
the ordinance.
it may be that she hasn't loaded it up there, but we did talk.
Okay.
Um,
And there's some changes in the members and stuff that did we email her about that changing, updating our commission page?
yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
all right.
All right.
All right, so we're going to. List. Hello. And update.
Yep. So we want to get the list up there and we want to get that up there.
Okay.
All righty, so we have our answers on that one. We're
Yes.
ready to move on.
Mhm.
For 8.3, I think this is a question that Kathy had, but I think it's a group one as well. Wanted to review the process for adding amendments to our current ordinance.
Right, as it, well, apparently, I guess there is already a process, but as we go along with the ordinance, it comes up, new things might pop up that we'd want to add. I'll give say an example would be, some municipalities have, okayed a historic architect to serve on their commission from out of the township. So that, because sometimes you cannot find a historic architect. So if you wanted to add that, because I don't think that ours, I think, as I read it, said you had to live in the
I
township.
think that's true.
Yeah, so say you wanted to, that's something that would be,
That's an example.
and yeah, well, it's probably, because we are probably short one member anyway, because we have an even number now. And I'm assuming we should be odd.
Well, and maybe we periodically discuss the ordinance once or twice a year.
To see, yeah,
As to are there things that we want to.
So at any point, if there's an amendment to the ordinance, it would need to be something that you would put together, propose what you want that to be. You would then send it to the board. The board would then make the decision whether or not they want. And probably what would initially happen is I would run it by a couple board members. Is this something that you're even interested in? Do you want to do it. If they're, or if they might say, we'd really like you just to tweak it a little bit or whatever. And then we would send it before the board. Then we would have to engage Rich to put it into an amendment format. And then it gets amended and it becomes codified into the ordinance. So it's a two-step process. They would write the amendment because much of yours is a zoning related type of thing. I would have to go through the zoning process as an amendment mostly. I say that because part of it does not, part of it does. So, but depending on what you're trying to change, it would go through the zoning piece, and then the process, which I think that means it has to go through the planning commission before the board of supervisors, and then be approved. So those would be the steps. And I say that, and you might want to change something, and membership, I think, is one of those things that would not have to go all the way through that process.
I was
So-
thinking of the easier things
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
It's like
So
wording,
the-
could we just change that sentence to
Yeah.
include that?
Yeah, so, but then that question becomes, is that a paid piece then to have a member?
Right, I
You-
would think they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, then, so
So
that
it'd be
would be the one,
voluntary.
it would have to be voluntary. And the question is somebody willing to do that then? And then, so, but
In
doesn't,
return for work, they might.
yeah, but it doesn't preclude them from doing it.
No, but I
yeah.
mean, it might give them opportunities
Yeah,
to get, that's,
absolutely.
and I have met several that don't happen to live in Newtown, but would be willing
Do we,
to do that, because I guess they do that for a living and it gives them access to
do we
more
wanna,
information.
do we wanna put a discussion of the ordinance on like the May agenda? And kind of,
Everybody can review it. and-
everybody can
and the-
review it
yeah,
on the next-
again,
because the membership requirements, I would love to discuss. Because I've always felt that property owners should be just as eligible as residents. It's a pet peeve of mine.
or.
Say I own that historic bank, but I live one town over. I would think that a property owner, a business property owner, should be eligible for membership on on the township board as well.
Oh, because they own a property. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so that could be.
but
I see.
currently that's not permitted, so I'd love to discuss that.
Okay.
And your idea of
The
perhaps
architect.
having a particular specialist that would benefit us as eligible as well would be something that we could discuss.
And it kind of goes along with that, because I think that's what they want.
And then we could,
It goes along, you know, it all
Yep.
kind of ties in.
so if we wanna like put this about 2 months out so that we can all read through the ordinance
To
again.
focus on that for
And we
starters.
can touch base next month to say, you know, these are the kinds of things I'm thinking, so people can think about it for a month. And then we can, if we decide we want to propose anything, motion to do that at that May meeting.
That's good.
And I don't know if I need to motion to put that on our May agenda here. Or if I
No,
do that next
you're,
month.
you are the chair, you can do that.
Well, why don't we put it on old business for next month to review it, and then we can put it on for the May agenda next month.
Okay.
And I guess that takes us to 8.4,
Um,
which is a discussion of the permitting process as it pertains to, is there any difference in how our system works for class 1 resources versus class 2 resources? And I think the question, as I understand that, is if
If
one
it's
of
the
the
same.
township properties or one of the Dunwoody properties, or
There's 5 class 1s in the
Yep.
township.
if they were, to come up for some sort of
Permit.
permit process, would they go through the same process as the class 2 resources that we are?
They have to go through the processes laid out in the
In the ordinance?
ordinance. And I
Okay.
think the way the ordinance states on those, that they come before you. Now, the question the reason why the question on clarification is our ordinance is written in such a way that it focuses on the exterior of the building. However, our class one resources, obviously, the interior is also important, but I don't think it speaks to that
I wouldn't
Yeah.
think it would, no.
in the process. So, and I'm just gonna pick on something that the township owns so that I'm picking on us and that somebody doesn't think I'm picking on somebody else. We have acquired the Square Tavern,
Mhm.
John West House, however you refer to it. Or even the Paper Mill House. If we were to go in and put up a wall on the interior, we would still require a permit. But it would not necessarily be something that would come before you because it was an interior.
Being a class one resource, would it go in front of anybody? Like are class one resources covered by other historical groups other than us?
County or state,
Since the.
or whoever.
Well,
since-
there are
Like
guidelines
designated
for a
there.
nationally registered.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we
We'd
would
have to
have to
look that
follow
up.
those guidelines. And so I don't happen to know what those guidelines are in front of me tonight. And so we would have to do that. But if I recall the ordinance, and I haven't looked at it recently, I don't think there's any requirement in here that it's any different than class two,
Well, and
other than we still have to do the
and that's
the
what it sounds like. It
federal
sounds,
requirement.
it sounds like if there was an exterior change being requested, that would come in front of us. If
Yeah.
there was an interior change, it probably would not.
Yes, and I want to say it also, I think, includes the property that it sits, like the way I think it's written is such that it includes the property it sits on, so that and I'll use the John West House, we had talked about at one point several years ago when they had talked about using it as something other than when the other owner had talked about potentially like doing a coffee shop or something like that in it. We knew that the bathrooms inside were not set to handle that kind of traffic.
Mhm.
So we would have had to consider doing something outside the building to be able to do that. And so when we talked about that, it was like, well, you can't just go put up cinder
Outhouse.
block. Well, no, like we couldn't have just put up a cinder block bathroom
Mhm.
that you see at Drexel Lodge Park, because it doesn't fit in the historic context of what that was. Now, a separate bathroom probably would fit in the idea of an outhouse, probably would have been better, but we didn't think that would go over too well. So that was kind of the conversation, what that would look like, how we would do it, how we would connect it, because a lot of those things, the current building code requires the bathroom to be within so many feet of where people will be.
Mhm.
So I can't send them all the way back out to the parking lot and have a bathroom. So like, if you wanted to do something, and I'm using that
Mhm.
because I don't think it's gonna happen. That's why I'm using that as an example. I don't want somebody listening on the TV or on YouTube all of a sudden thinking that I'm promoting something at the John West House. I'm not. I don't think it's gonna happen. So it's one of those things that, like, we would have to walk through that process. However, as a township location and a trailhead, at some point, we may say that a bathroom somewhere on that property makes sense. And what would that look like? And could we do something that would look historic and fit in that area, even though it's anything but historic in that way, but you would want it, but it would be beneficial. It would be probably something that would be worth doing at some point. Again, I don't see that happening in the next 5 years, just knowing where we are financially and everything, but it is something that we would consider at some point in the future.
So in that.
I don't know if that
process-
answered your question, but
I think it does.
Partly, and then, so then following through on that, even though the township is the owner, they still would have to bring that to the historic commission.
correct.
That is, I think, what the clarity we wanted on that. Even
Yeah,
for-
like we could, like,
roofing
let's-
material, like for the tavern, if it needs a new roof, or something that's going to even be exterior. with
Well, I
the-
think if we went and we were replacing what was there, I don't think we would have to come back.
If you do it exact, yeah.
Like, so if, I don't remember what the roof is on there. I think it's a cedar roof.
is.
It is. If we went back with a cedar
Just the
roof,
same, yeah.
I don't think there
Okay.
would be any reason for us to come here.
Okay,
If we were to, like, I don't think we could go and put a 6-panel door on the door to entry, because that would be an exterior, even
Right.
like a metal 6-panel door, we probably wouldn't do. Now, we might still go with a metal 6-panel door if you all approve that for
Mhm.
whatever reason, if we could make it look historic, right? You know, I mean, but probably we would be
Yes.
coming back and trying to find, no, I know,
He
but
made-
this-
I think he made that door, no.
but you hear what I'm saying?
Yes,
It's like,
totally.
but
No,
like-
yeah, we just wanted to get clarified so that,
Yeah.
so, because even the ones we don't have, like St. David's Church, we never know.
Yeah,
I don't even know if they know they would have to do that.
well, I mean, they're gonna come in for a permit.
They will,
They,
okay,
like, well, let me say this. Hopefully, the owner of a building understands when you're doing a change, you have to come in, if you're changing the structure of the building, you have to come in and do it.
Right.
You know, and if they came in for a permit, Andy's gonna flag it as a class 1 resource.
okay,
And if it's an exterior change, it would then come before you.
Okay.
Okay,
and so,
and I will tell you, so just to give you an example, when we did this building, right, we did the changes, we pulled a permit. We did a project not too long ago that required a change. We pulled a permit. So we as the township pull a permit. Now, we don't pay for the permit,
Mhm.
right? Because we're writing a check to ourselves. But we pull the permit just like any other property owner. It goes in our file. It's there showing what we've done so that we're covered. Okay?
so I guess, yeah, so if down the road we want to include for the class 1's interior, that would be an amendment that we would have to.
We'd have to
add.
amend, I mean, now, I don't know what the National Registry requires. The National
I don't think
Registry,
there is, I think people think that there's a lot of rules, but when
I
I
don't
read
think
it,
there is the,
no, and I think I asked them about that with roofing materials and stuff.
Yeah.
Could we change it? Could we do, and she said, well, as long as there isn't a rule.
yeah,
Basically,
because
they
I
leave it
mean,
up to
think
your
about the
judgment.
bridge. We put a
Yes.
metal roof on the bridge,
Yes,
you know, I mean, that, and it made sense at the time,
yeah,
you know, so,
I know, it did.
Yeah.
It looks great, by the way.
Yeah.
The stone looks really nice.
The stone's looking really
Yeah,
good.
he's doing a good job.
They're doing nice.
If you're doing an interior change, if you're taking out a wall, the township knows enough that it's a structural wall or it's not a structural wall.
Oh, yes.
You know, so it's, the township will take care of it.
Oh, right,
But-
I'm
but
not
if-
worried that
Yeah.
they're gonna do internal things.
Yeah.
That's, I just wanted the process to
Yeah.
just be kind of like transparent for outside things. too.
Yeah,
And so like you meant the grounds as well, so,
I think that if we did a major change on the grounds, it would come before you.
yeah, okay,
You know, I mean, I'm saying that, I mean, like, if we go to change a planting, probably most of the plantings weren't there at the time in which the house was there.
No.
So we would just do that. But if it's a change, like if we were going to,
hardscaping, like walkways,
yeah,
those are
we
the
would
things we
probably
can
bring
talk
that
with
in.
George with,
We'd be
okay.
that way.
All right, we good on that one?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Then this one's gonna go to Kathy. This is a discussion and possible action
I didn't give you.
on the certified local government information.
Okay, so I
Okay.
gave everybody.
Thank you.
So anyway, you can read over. The certified local government, is in essence a historic preservation type of, government, designation, but it primarily helps with getting grants for historic preservation, and I met with the, regional manager for the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission, and she said that it moves you to the top of the list. It's basically, if you're applying for historic grants or the Keystone grants or whatever grants for that, it gives you priority. And you'll see in my letter there that only 3 municipalities have it. I talked to them at the meeting. And that's not because they don't want it, it's just because no one really has pursued it. And I have the application and the information here gives you all the benefits. The letter I did, it's kind of like a summary. So you can see those are the benefits to doing it. And the application is a little lengthy, but it can be initiated by me, but it has to be then completed with some data that you would have to do. Then it has to be approved by the supervisors.
Yep.
So it would run, and Leonard, I had spoke with him about it like a month ago, and he wanted a formal request. So this is kind of like the formal, and I have all the rest of the information.
Okay.
The application, there's a letter that you can send when you do it, and they give you notification if you're accepted. And even though the application may look daunting, I talked to the woman on the phone we went through every part of that application. And I think there was only one thing I wasn't sure of, and it was do we follow some practices that are like not universal, but have you ever heard of a universal, oh my gosh, what's that called? Universal, something with zoning and anyway, I have that written down. I'll
Okay.
go over. That was the only one I wasn't sure because I'd never heard it mentioned. The major things that they look at is whether you have an ordinance, whether it's in your strategic plan, which it is.
Mhm.
And we do have the ordinance, and there was one more I put in there that they looked at.
So what do we need to do to confirm that our ordinance and group conform with what they're looking for?
Well, they've read it. I
And
sent
then-
them our ordinance,
Okay.
and they did look through that. I gave them all that information because I wasn't gonna start
And
this if
then
it
what
wasn't.
legwork do we need to do to put together a proposal that the township could consider as to whether we would be able to proceed with it?
Basically, we would just vote that we would start the application process. And then it goes through Steve and it goes through Leonard, and you can revise, you can look at it, questions we could get answered, but I think that's how it starts. And if I do the like busy work in the beginning, which is just filling out information I know, and I can get off the website and
So probably what would be helpful if you just, maybe I can find it if it's online. But if I could just look at the application, like if I could go through it and say, we're never gonna be able to do this, I should tell you that up front. Like, I don't
I
know what. Okay,
but I doodled on it, but that's okay.
no, I'm just saying like, like if there's, like you said,
give
this
you the
zoning
webpage.
thing, like if there's anything that you're questioning, like if I can answer that, I'd hate for you to spend
I know.
8 hours working on something and then for me to tell you, yeah, well, we don't do that. And I don't know how we would ever do that. And, it's,
She seemed to think we were pretty good.
yeah,
The one thing was not even that. That was mine because I never heard of it.
uh-huh,
It was do you have a historic architect somehow involved in your commission or somebody with the
Yeah.
expertise on that? So that is why I thought, oh, okay. She said that anything you're iffy on, you can just pursue, but still from Chad's Ford, when I talked with her, you still, once you fill it out, even if you don't have everything exact, like with that,
uh-huh.
the chance of getting it is very high, just because we don't have an architect on board, but we have everybody else. So those aren't the major things.
Mhm.
I think they're looking, the major ones I said with the ordinance and we have a process for putting properties on, and the strategic plan, which has a nice little section all
I-
about it.
Look, I'm all for like, one, if we've taken all the steps already to get there and it's just a matter of filling out the application, let's do it. We've done that for accreditation for the police. We've done that, like we've done those things. So we did it with our sustainability and things like that. So it makes sense to just kind of treat this like those.
Yes.
Do we want to give Steve what he needs to review it and then vote on it
Would you rather just go to the site and read it? And then you don't have to, my papers just have my notes on it. So why don't I give you the exact page? Because I copied it off of that.
Is it? I'm looking here to see if I just see the application. Is this through the state or is it through the,
Go to the
Federal.
Pennsylvania Historic
oh,
Museum,
so it's through the
museum and whatever they.
You're not looking at doing it at the federal level?
No,
Okay.
this is the state. Just want resumes of all the members of the commission. I'm looking here, supporting documents.
That's fine.
I know, but this is all things that we can do. Oh, international existing building code is adopted policy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That was it. So I don't think you're gonna find it. I mean, it looks busy.
We act, ours is written in such a way that it says we adopt what the state adopts,
Okay,
which is I think the state just recently adopted. I forget whether they're on the 2020 or the 2018. We're a little bit behind as a state, but we're somewhere in there. But we adopt whatever the state has adopted.
so do you want to pull that up online and or do it rather than me get this paper one? Because it's pretty self-explanatory and it's a,
Yeah, if that was your real question, that was.
well, that was, I had not heard of it. I know. The, yeah, the rest is the architectural part, which I'll work on. And again, it's not, doesn't mean that they're not gonna,
Let's
a
put it on-
inspector and
let's
historic
put it on- Let's
renovator.
put it on next month's agenda
Okay.
to circle back with Steve and then yay or nay and.
And you'll have ample time to read through that, because it's not really, it's not long. We went, as I said, I went through the whole thing online with her. And the number one reason that most townships do it is to get grants.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and that, that just fits specifically into part of the whole ordinance.
Mhm.
Is yeah, why you exist is to help us do that. So I think that's great.
Yes, this one is much shorter.
Oh, you did it on one page?
Yes, yes.
All right.
So what you have with the agenda tonight has been rewritten. Apologies again for the late submission, but this is the version that I have updated. That way it's much more concise. It's on one page and it summarizes very briefly what the ordinance requires of them, of the homeowner.
So that's much better.
Mhm.
Not as scary, right?
No, no.
It's like, oh my God.
I do like the shorter format.
Mhm.
2 pages is a bit much to ask of people.
Oh, it totally is.
So you could send the same letter or minor
version of it.
changes to when somebody purchases one of these, the class 2 resources.
That, yeah, the goal of this one is, this is what we would send to them after it's been on it, but
Mhm.
for the realtor,
Mhm.
that,
It might be just a slight
yeah,
alteration.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
just change the audience.
Maybe with the paperwork, some history about the house attached with it.
Let me ask a rookie question here.
Mhm.
What are the consequences if you damage, demolish a historic home?
Well, we don't outline that.
That's why we have a group of people here. That doesn't happen.
Well, but you want to know what what stops somebody from demolishing and then, oh,
I've got a historic
I'm
home and
sorry.
it costs me $1,000 if I pay a penalty to
Yeah.
the township and I go,
Someone else
$1,000
adds that.
fine, it's cost of doing business, and I just do it. But what
That's
makes it
been answered.
prohibitive to damage or destroy a historic home?
Without following the process. Meaning,
Suppose they ignore
What's
the
the penalty?
process,
Well, yes.
they
What's
just
the
bulldoze it
penalty?
down
Yeah,
and you go.
Well,
"Oh,
so it's the same thing that if you decided tomorrow that you wanted to bulldoze your house and start all over.
Right.
Your house, I'm assuming your house is not historic when I say that.
It is not historic. no.
It may be, but, so I'm assuming, but it's, so tomorrow, if you decided to do that, or if I decided to do that, and I got the bulldozer out, I live in an HOA, I'd have all kinds of problems, but assume that I wasn't in an HOA for a minute, and I went and bulldozed my house. We would be there if we found out about it. You were required to pull a demolition permit if you're doing that kind of work on your property. We have concerns about what the soil impact is. There's certain things that we look at. There is a fine, but it's limited. It's double the cost of the permit, whatever that would have been. And so it's a pretty small amount.
Right.
And so the answer to your question is yes, some people choose to do that as the cost of doing business. I don't think we have anything in place that makes it anything less than that or anything more than that. I'm sorry, for a historic that I know of. So somebody could do that. But we make the assumption that the average person desires to do the right thing. And once they would submit for the permit, Andy would then say, oh, your property is a class 1 or a class 2. That requires going before the historic commission. And here's the steps that takes.
If they do knock it down, it would take forever to get a permit that you would actually need to put something back up. The township would just drag their feet. Not that I'm talking for the.
Is that true?
township, But that's usually.
Is
what
there
happens.
something in place to make that happen?
well, you think about the timing of how long it takes to get here. And then if we make recommendations that then have to go to the board. And then, right, so like everything requires that 30-day notice and then it has to go and, so it inherently by the process delays the.
Well, if I come in and say, look, I want to demo my house. It's a historic house, yes, but I believe that it's of no value for whatever reason, I can't make it habitable,
Mhm.
so I'm going to demo it. So let's take that kind of approach first. I'm assuming that somebody isn't living there. If you're living there, it's kind of hard to argue it. You can't make it habitable. Although I do have 2 places in town that I would say that's the case. But so let's assume that it's not, that you can't make it habitable. They still have to come here. You would review it. I think you would see if they couldn't make it habitable, that you would probably grant them the ability to tear it down. Now, the question is was it by neglect? Because there is a piece in there that says it's by neglect. If it's by neglect, I'd have to look back. I don't recall any specific fines, but it would be a fine and it would be limited to that.
Have they ever considered saying something like, and is to encourage people not to do this?
Uh-huh.
You gave a great scenario, but I'm just saying you take a perfectly habitable historic home, but the theory is, hey, I'm not into history. I just want to get rid of this thing and build a modern home here, which is going to be a lot more valuable for me
Yeah.
to sell. Okay. Could somebody ever say, well, wait a minute, the ground that it's on is historic also. If the building disappears, that's historic ground and we're going to keep it that way. It's sort of sacred ground. So when you try and come and get a new permit to build your new modern home, you're probably not going to get one because you're going to be building on sacred ground. Has that argument ever been made?
Well, and I first of all, I think the courts would throw that out, because the courts would say you can't you can't take property, that's like a taking of property. And because Ben basically said that you can't do something. Now, let me be careful in that. Obviously, if we determine that there's some historic value to the ground, more than just what was the house that was sitting on it, there are some things that can be done, but it's like, there's a lot more limitation, let me just say them. I mean, like, the courts have set themselves in place that the property owner has a lot more rights than the community does to limit that. Because if I take it out of historic for a moment.
Right.
And say, we as a community have decided that open space is priority, and so therefore, we're gonna say that any piece of land that's not developed today has to stay open. If we did that, and we would be in court and we would lose every time. You know, we can't, the law does not allow us to do that. The law says that the property owner has rights. Now, the question you're asking is there some way to say, if you tear down a value, do we limit what you do going forward? And I don't know that. I'd have to.
So
that's a legal question.
so what if we do get the building on the historic preservation resource list and it is rezoned? And then they say, well, you know what, a new owner came in and yeah, it might be zoned for a historic property, but I want to tear it down. Now it's zoned for this, so what are their limitations?
Well, there are limitations that have to come before you. And if you remember, your ordinance doesn't keep you from demolition. It
Right.
just gives you an opportunity to give them another option or another plan.
But does it give them does it make it harder for them because of the zoning? Because now they have to get it rezoned for non-historical property, right?
Well, that would happen in the rebuild.
That would happen, yeah. I mean, and I think the way the concept was that it forced things to come before you so that you had the opportunity to, one, potentially, like doing this potentially allows us to go get funding, you know, that maybe there's a way to save the building.
Mhm.
You know, is there a way to save the exterior, even though the interior might be totally redone? And, you know, I've been in some historic houses that I think are absolutely gorgeous, but being as tall as I am, I would find it very hard to be in those and live comfortably.
Mhm.
You know, I've been in some where I couldn't even stand up in the dining room or in the living room, you know, and it's fun to visit, but it sure wouldn't be fun to live there. So, you know, those.
And you wouldn't buy one.
And I
That's the
would not
thing.
buy one, right,
And I think
exactly,
that's what it gets to where you find the right owner,
right.
you know, and that's
so it
the
helps.
question, why did you buy this home?
Yeah.
If you, and usually, and I think the only time that has come up even so far is someone who isn't the homeowner, and I don't refer to people who have a historic house as the homeowner unless they live in it. So if you bought it and you want to do something with it, you're just the property owner, and they're the ones who want to knock them down. So it's usually a developer or somebody buying this house that was vacated because somebody passed away or something like that. And as yet, we haven't had that happen. However, it does happen in Marple, because I know, and it usually though, it happens at the point where the permit to demolish comes in and somehow something isn't done. That doesn't happen here. You know, something at that level was not taken care of, so the demolition permit was given to a historic home that's on the inventory in their ordinance.
Could participation in the CLG program be an incentive for people to want to make their properties class 2 resources? Because we're participating in this program if they do need to do some exterior
I'm not
upgrades.
sure. I can find out. I don't know. I mean, there was a question on incentives anyway, and what kind of breaks or tax cuts or different types of things could be given, or even abilities to adaptively reuse in a creative way that maybe they need special exception to do. So yeah, I don't know. They definitely would help to have a list of any perks to being listed.
Is this for dollars to the township or dollars
It-
available for a
For any,
project?
the Historic Society, if, we want to do a new inventory,
Or both?
or even we want to do a new historic inventory.
Mhm.
You could get money to pay for that. That's what Haverford got it, their money for. So they, and it paid for somebody to come in and they did a whole inventory of all their historic buildings in their town.
Mm.
And that would be a great idea if in turn that then allows us to transfer that into our ordinance with an agreement that, okay, it's a new inventory, it's done. So in its entirety, could that now be entered in like Marple has? Everything on their old inventory was in. So this would be a new one. And it would have to be agreed upon ahead of time. But yes, other organizations, I don't think a homeowner, these are state grants for, I don't think a private homeowner,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I could find out if there's anything. That would be nice.
Let me know what you find out.
Yeah.
It's like if you have an underground oil tank that leached into the ground,
Mm.
there's funds, depending on if there's any available throughout the year, that are available to a homeowner to apply for within the state. So if there's any
Okay.
funds left, so
Oh.
that's a program that is available in that circumstance. That they could get some type
Right.
of, contribution. So is there something, even if it's
I'll find out.
tiny,
I'll find out.
by participating, they could apply, or is there some type of entity like opportunity for the people to participate? If they're not in the class 2 resource, then we cannot sort of,
Last.
sort of push our weight behind it if you're not in it. So just curious.
I'll find out. I'm gonna ask the question of the person who knows.
All right, do we want to steer back to the letter?
Yes.
We're,
go
uh,
ahead.
we're somewhat over time.
Mhm.
Do we want to review the letter this month and give you feedback?
Yes,
And do you want to kind of work on rewording it to fit
yes.
homeowner?
I put that on for next month. Have a letter to the realtor / new purchaser of the class 2 property. And
Very
then
good.
we will approve or make changes and approve for next time on this one.
Make a
Okay.
suggestion, maybe there's a third letter. It's listed, a letter goes to the realtor just to share.
Yeah.
This, and then something on the follow-up goes to the buyer.
I have both of them here.
Okay, fabulous.
Yeah.
Stephen, is there someone at the township who will need to review these before we approve them and put them into use?
Well, for sure, I'll review them before you put them,
Okay.
into use. I probably will run it by the board just so they know, because anytime we're sending something out, I'm assuming this is gonna go on township letterheads, particularly since it says it's
Mhm.
coming from the township.
Mhm.
So I will let the board know.
Okay. Well, then
Do we
let's,
want to talk about any updates anybody wants to make to this before?
Is
if
it just
anybody
that
has
one
any
or
updates
next?
today,
That's just the one.
Yeah, just this one for today.
Okay.
That's the only one I
Otherwise-
have done.
Okay. I thought you were saying letters.
Well, yeah, I'm going to draft 2 more letters that I will have available for the next.
I guess just,
You're never gonna get them all mailed.
all right.
I guess just the phone
Never gonna
number,
mail.
This is,
Or an
no,
email
this is the
address.
most important one because this.
I
goes
think
to homeowner.
so.
who to contact.
These are just ancillary to provide to realtors if they should happen. So like if we see there's a listing for historic property
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't notify, we can notify the realtor, hey, here's the letter. Hey, by the way.
There was a question of if we should have a contact on this.
Yeah, so sincerely Newtown Township, I didn't put any contact on there because I'm not sure if they would address,
Who it would be?
well, how they would funnel it down to us, because I'm assuming if they have a question, they want to contact us, the us is this commission, right?
Well, and I guess that's the question that I have is how do you see? Like, what is, you say if you put, contact us, what does that look like?
Yeah, and you probably need
I mean, I can just
a
take
little
that off.
directional on where they find the ordinance to read. I know when
Okay.
we sent out letters to all the homeowners that they were going to be into the ordinance, this was years back. We put a reference so they could read the draft of the
Mhm.
ordinance and then, So, yeah, the webpage,
We create an email address just for this purpose with Historic Commission.
Could somebody like Heather, who's on the.
Yeah, so here's
then
the
she
thing,
can-
it's like, who's gonna monitor that? And
Yeah.
That becomes my concern.
Mhm.
So
well,
I guess,
the the chairman's willing to put theirs out there. I mean, I have mine for everybody at the history, that writes me for everything.
Well,
It's
maybe,
not that many, it's not, trust me, it's not as many as you think, but if you're willing to do that,
maybe the contact,
and that
push-
changes.
maybe the contact pushes you back to the to a historic commission page that has a questions email or,
Well,
Well, yeah,
The
it does,
ordinance.
actually, it does, because some of the tree, I found people's emails on the web township. So
So-
we should have our emails
so
by our
here's-
name.
well, but typically,
We don't mind.
I kind of discourage that a
Oh,
little
okay.
bit, so, because unless you just want to get lots of mail. Um, let me have some conversations with our staff.
Okay.
As to, my concern is, if every committee does this, I could end up with a lot of
Can we-
additional
Could we
efforts.
create one? We have info@nshistory.org. We have a separate one.
I understand, but I would tie it through the township, but.
Right, I'm
but
saying
for
could-
us, there's a cost, and so I just have to
Uh-huh.
work with that.
Oh, you mean to create a new email?
You have a new email,
We would
Well,
add.
but if I can create it and have it go to somebody's email,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
then, so in other words, if I create it as the Historic Commission, but it goes to Heather, then I don't pay for it.
Mhm.
If it is its own
It's just
email
an
and
alias.
somebody has to look at it, then I pay for it because we're through, we're using Outlook at 365. So we just have to look at what we're doing. And my question is, do you really want to be the ones that are responsible for checking email on a regular basis? And my guess is nobody wants to do that. So it probably needs to come to the township, but my question is who?
Or,
I need to
or
do
you
that.
can do what I did also. I'm trying to think back. It's been so long. At the end of my letter, I had informational meetings. So if somebody wanted to come and talk, well, we have a monthly meeting. If there's questions or
Yeah.
issues, that's why if the letter is a little more vague. They have to kind of do their research or come here and ask us questions. And I think that is probably, because it really, a lot of times, if homes were put into the ordinance to begin with, like what we were going to do, they would have to come to try to take it off. They would have to say, oh, I'd like to apply to have it taken off.
Mhm.
They have to come in before the commission to do that. So if they have questions or concerns, 'cause most of them have already been talked to about it, so. But specific things we could put, we hold the monthly meeting, the time, and if you have any questions or concerns.
Well, can I
could
encompass
show
it
up.
with this webpage? So from here, you can get to our meetings, you can get
Right.
to the
ordinance,
ordinance,
yeah.
you can get to the members. So
That's
if you
what we can
have
reference that.
any questions or you need further assistance,
Yeah,
please
please.
reference this.
And put the
So,
the webpage. Yeah.
If
What I would do.
it did go to
Make them do a
Heather,
little work.
if it did go to Heather, would Heather just send it to us?
Well, I think it depends on what it is, I mean.
Better idea, do that.
My guess is, if it's a realtor calling in and asking for, or coming in for a question, they're probably wanting an answer pretty quickly,
Mhm.
and so, I mean, do you all want to be on a clock to get an answer, or do you want our staff to answer the
Well,
question? And that's the question that I'm trying to
so-
figure out.
So if we point them to the township website on the Historical Preservation Commission page on the township website, and they're not seeing any way to contact any one of us, their next recourse is to call the township.
Yeah, and they will.
The Historic Society gets most of the realtor calls. We get a lot of those. In the
But,
last
but what I'm
year,
saying is if
so
we direct
they-
them here.
You can, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but they automatically, for some reason, they always pick up because we have an email
Mhm.
on our webpage that you can write, an info email. And so they all write there or call
Let
me.
me-
They call.
Let me,
Okay.
let me do this. Let me have some
Yeah.
conversations with my staff. Because I think there's some
What you're
things that
saying
we
is the
would
best.
just answer the questions on, like,
Mhm.
I think they're procedural questions, and I don't think you want to be answering procedural questions. I think if it's a
No.
question related to like, why is this house historic? If that's the question, I'm definitely referring it to you as the group to respond to versus,
Well, that's logical. That makes sense. Because a lot of them, as you said, can just be answered in-house.
right,
And if they can't easily be answered in-house, they can simply be pushed over to us.
yeah, and I would tell
Yeah,
them
they're
that-
gonna have questions for zoning code.
right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying if it's a zoning or a codes question, it really needs to be answered by
Yeah.
our zoning and codes department.
So, here's like this, the best.
Well, and if
Yep.
that was the way it was decided to go, that could be simply added to the bottom of the webpage.
Property.
All righty.
They're just,
Anything
I
else?
do think that if we're gonna say at the bottom of the line, if you have any questions, contact us. We ought to give them a place. Like,
Yeah, no,
I think it always requires a contact. I
So-
just think we need to figure out who it is.
so that was AI suggestion, because
Yeah.
that's what AI tells you to do. That does not need to be listed
Yeah.
there.
is it really?
Oh, yeah, no, I totally took that whole long thing, was like, make this concise and friendly.
Yeah.
And it said, here you go.
Because sometimes I just had a circumstance in another county and another township with a buyer. The sellers did not know that their house that was built in 1784 was historic. And they lived there for about 30 years. The township had done particulars to make it historic. And when they filled out their seller's disclosure, no information about historic. Of course, my client wanted to write an offer on a Saturday, and I'm telling you, one of the houses where you can hardly stand up in, and my client is tall, and I said, that may be, are you sure? But, we weren't able to get any information. The sellers insisted they weren't, called Monday to the township, they're historic.
Yeah.
It was helpful, because sometimes you just don't have, if we get the letter out to the realtor, some of that information could be at least, clarified or identified in advance, and the sellers could properly note the information on their disclosure. So I think it
So-
would be helpful.
So let me ask you this question, because I'm having
We already have it.
a little bit of anxiety in
Mhm.
this for a moment. Because you're saying that there's a letter that's going to the realtor at the time in which of the listing is what I thought I heard somebody say.
Mm.
Who's determining that? And how is that being done? Like, who's providing the data that goes with that letter?
Probably one of these realtors here. Basically, we would take a look at, every couple weeks or every week and see if anything's listed historic. It's not like we have 15 properties that list historic. One just sold, the Grimm house just settled. So that would be one to send a letter out to whomever the purchase person is.
Him.
The one at Bishop Hollow in Gradyville.
Oh, further up
Yeah.
toward here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That one was on the market for a while.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
was easy.
Yeah.
I mean, my concern is some things historic houses tend to stay on a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
just because you have to have the right buyer, you reduce the people who are willing
Mhm.
substantially. But, we still, I don't think we're as much that way, but we're still in an area where houses turn over pretty quickly. At least they had been up until recently. But the question, when I start looking at that,
Mhm.
like, I just want to make sure that the expectation is not township staff checking on a regular basis what's
Mhm.
being listed, because we don't watch those things, I mean, I do, actually, I try to watch the rental side more, because we
Mhm.
find places that are being rented that don't have rental license that way. And do that. We assume that if it makes it to the MLS somehow, that you as realtors are going to make sure all the proper township documents are gotten in selling it. It's the ones that don't make it to that that become the harder ones.
Well, I
So
mean,
that's my only concern. I think we would mail the letter if we would mail it from the township if somebody's giving us the data to do it. But I don't think we have, I don't think we have the resource
Proactively go out
to
and,
go get it, nor do we have the resource, unless you were to take every historic property and have like a.
well, this would
uh,
only, that letter to the realtor would only apply to the properties that are on the class 2 resource.
Okay,
I don't
Oh,
think we're
yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
any just because they're,
You've been added.
Yeah, it's one that's already,
It's not the historic ones that haven't been added yet.
no.
right.
oh, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I thought the letter to the realtor was any one of your
No,
100.
no,
No.
no, no, just like, it's just like with the homeowner.
I'm
you're
having
now-
like, oh,
No, just like with the homeowner, here you are now on
Yeah.
class 2, this is, you know,
Mhm.
your official welcome letter, this is
this
also
is
like.
just, so this letter that's going to the realtor is just notifying them that they're a class 2 resource.
Mhm.
Right,
And a property's listed, it's an older home, look to see, is it on the resource list? If it's not class 1 or if it's not class 2, then we don't do anything.
Right, the problem is, all the phone calls that I've gotten
Are
have
about-
been, majority were not on there.
Yeah.
And the reason is they all have historic markers, because
Mhm.
historic marker, they were all
Mhm.
designated in that original inventory.
Mhm.
So they are all, so the person buys it and they see it and they're assuming it, and I don't tell them otherwise.
Yeah,
I just pretty much give them basics, and most people are appreciative
Yeah.
of that. But that is the problem, it's confusing,
Mhm.
because here on the one side, they know it is, but that's not been listed, and so they
Well,
they don't
it's just gonna
fall
take
under all
time.
that.
if they call you at the historic commission, you're having a whole different conversation with them than we are from the township,
right.
right? So I'm happy if they call you and you
I
say,
know.
yes, that property's historic. And you're answering it not as the historic commission member, but as the historic society member.
Correct.
Because that's who they're contacting. I'm happy with that all day long,
Okay.
right? It's just, they don't, if they go in and do demolition, we've got another, we're just not
Yeah.
able to do anything. That's. the
No,
problem.
I know, and actually Frank met with the homeowner that bought the Gradyville and intersection home,
Mhm.
the Gothic. So to preemptively, he showed his plans to Frank and told him what he wanted to do. It was more, and that's from the Historic Society's
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
perspective. And it works much better because you get the person, you allay their anxiety about what they're doing, and they're trying to work within the system. And it's just kind of like going to visit these people when you want to apply for their homes. If you talk to everybody, it makes it
Houses
much
we know that
easier.
are-
And
sale
this is
for
a nice
office.
letter. Could this be posted on the website, like where we have a listing of the class 2 properties? And, you own a class 2 property, and just sort of dial this in a little bit more generic, like for them to, print
right.
out and know.
Well, there is something, if you go to that page in the township.
Yeah.
And on the left-hand side,
Mhm.
and there's what did it say? Hold on. Hold
Or
on.
just like a 1-pager.
I know, but this historic property information.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Historic property information gives you. It gives you a rundown of the process for text for class 2
And it
historic
tells you all-
resources.
Who wrote this?
I don't know. I didn't write it.
Who did this?
And it
webpage?
gives you a link to the preservation ordinance, and it
The
gives you
Historic
information on
Commission
how to
webpage on
apply.
the
I don't
top.
know that.
So this would
I
be
think this
double
is,
work.
yeah.
Okay.
Is
Did
there-
you do it?
Not me personally.
Oh, no. Well, no, it's well done. I was just.
Yeah.
We
We
used our-
information on there. We were all like,
We,
whoa.
we used our communications person to do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they include some of this information about class 1 and class 2.
Yeah.
The
So-
applications are available from here.
Yeah.
The ordinance is available from
So
here.
it's that's.
Yeah, I
really
think it's a good
site.
summary.
Yeah, like if there's something else you want added, just let us know. I'll send it over to her. It may take a couple days to get everything over, but we'll get it on there.
And her email's on there.
Huh?
She puts,
Heather-
Heather's email's on
Heather's
the bottom
email's on
of
there.
it.
Yeah,
So if people
There-
want to contact
yeah.
her. So,
exactly.
yeah.
So, yeah.
But I am very cautious before I say I'm gonna put somebody on the bottom of a letter. Because I can tell you, my name is on the bottom of every business license that goes out.
Oh, no.
And I can't tell you how many phone calls and
I
stuff
bet.
I get about
Yeah.
business license. I don't deal with business license. There's somebody else in the township that does. We're changing that next year when we send them out. It's like, the problem is, it's my signature on
Right.
on the certificate. And so if people just call me, or they send me an email, and I won't count how many times it's Bucks County, Newtown,
Wow.
that's
I
actually.
bet.
Oh,
for
sure.
getting
Oh, yeah.
business, because depending on how they do the Google search, we come up on top.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay. Is there anything else we need to discuss before we move on?
Yeah.
All right. And I think that takes us to number 10, public comments. And we're gonna move past that because we don't have anybody here today. I think we've discussed items for the next agenda.
I have CLG on there just to look at the proposal to send to the board. Ordinance changes, letter to the realtor purchaser and approval of the homeowner letter after it makes some modifications. Anything
Alrighty.
else?
I'll hopefully meet with a few homeowners and have more applications, but I'll let you know before the next
Mhm.
deadline for that.
Then should we make a motion to adjourn this
I
meeting?
make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I will second your motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?